Good evening, everybody. This is clearly not the time I wanted to start streaming for all of you, but here we are. I'm going to do my best to do a full stream tonight. However, it does come with the challenge that I do have a sort of a first thing meeting at work. So I want to do my best to sort of strike that balance between still being responsible to my employer while trying to put on a good show. So we'll see where it goes. If there's sort of a natural breaking point that's a little bit earlier, I'll, as usual, sort of reserve the right to pack it in. But I don't have sort of an immediate plan to do a shorter stream. We'll see how it goes, though. I am aware, though, that um, when there's a later stream, I know this does sometimes mean that people aren't able to watch who would normally want. And I know the YouTube videos are a bit behind, so I try not to do a big dump full of full of episodes. I think that's one of the worst ways to sort of catch up with people. But I am kind of aware that the episodes are not exactly a month, but they are behind. And part of that was, there weren't episodes to upload while I was away, but unfortunately it does mean that I was just dealing with all of the follow-on kind of tasks from that trip, and I uploaded stuff, but I didn't schedule it. So there's a few of those that are just kind of running through. The other thing I'll just say in terms of sort of interruptions to the overall streaming pattern, there will be on Wednesday. I probably won't be able to stream. If something changes for that, I will. I'll obviously announce that or otherwise reach out. But I think in this case here, it's more likely than not that I will not stream on Wednesday. However, I will be streaming Friday, and I will be streaming on Christmas. So hopefully that sort of makes up for the absence. I am going to have to sneeze in a minute. Excuse me. All right, so let's think about next steps. Algrins, good to see you. Sorry for the late start. Oops, sorry, another sneeze. I don't have a direct muting option for the mic, so I sometimes just have to let it go. Where I can, though, I try not to blast the mic with it. I think the thing is that every once in a while I'll grab a blanket because of the weather, and inevitably it brings with it just a bunch of dust. At least that's what I think, because it does seem to be associated with the blanket. So, all right. Sorry, I need a minute to figure out the game plan. Right. Okay. So I should have something on my to-do list. I actually find it hard to believe we're this far through the year. It feels like I started the new job that I started back in January, I think. When did I start that, actually? Just give me a second here. Yeah, it was like the beginning of the year. Sorry, I've got damn it. I'm intrigued by the Apple Intelligence on the iPad, but I noticed that one of the consequences is it's a little bit more susceptible to like, this is one of the things I find really, really interesting about some of the stuff that LLMs are doing, which is junk mail is obviously a big, how do I put this? Like, this has been a big data-driven sort of problem. So if you look at a like a lot of different textbooks on statistical methods, machine learning, whatever you want to call it, usually you will motivate something that's kind of known as a classification problem, using spam as an example, because it's probably, it's not just that it's kind of a convenient one, but I think there's a good argument that this is a case where these methods have been applied rather successfully to basically make things better for people. So, you know, what's the main problem? Well, the main problem is you have like a set of emails, right? So people want to communicate. There is a set of emails that are unwanted communications, but the authors are trying to present that information in such a way that the recipient is more likely to see it, or that there's alternatively that the largest number of people will take action on it. I mean, in some cases, it's going to be somebody trying to infect your computer with something. So, you know, there's going to be some sort of malware attached. Alternatively, it could be, you know, they want you to buy something, they want you to go to certain links, like whatever it is. So in one sense, right, one of the problems is you want to have, when you have this communication, you want to assign higher priority to genuine communication that the person is interested in, and lower priority to these unsolicited communications. But the other thing that's interesting about this problem is that there is also sort of this asymmetry in terms of positives and negatives. So, you know, you can make a classifier. So this idea would be, you know, you have one of two labels, spam or not spam. And obviously there's other versions of this that you can do, which would be not just assigning it to spam or whatever, but also, you know, is this a promotional email as opposed to like a job offer? So, but let's just leave it simple, right? Spam or no spam. And what you can do, like a simple naive version of this, would be whatever classification you ultimately decide on, you could say, okay, well, you know, we'll have a score from like 0 to 100, right? We can call that sort of percent certainty. And if you're 50% plus 1, you know, in the case of like a probability like that, usually it's continuous. So like you don't really need the plus 1 because there's no, it doesn't matter. But, you know, you're 50% or you're 50% plus 1, whatever you want to call it. You know, you'll assign it as not spam. Or alternatively, if it's a spam detection, maybe you'll say that true is that it is spam. So if you're at that like 50%, you classify it as spam, and anything lower than that threshold, you'll classify as legitimate. And of course, the problem with that, right, is that if you have the job offer email, then, you know, the cost, the penalty for getting that wrong is very, very, very high, right? That can potentially be like a life-changing kind of mistake. Whereas, you know, one of the, you know, hey, I'm, you know, royalty of some sub-Saharan nation, you know, send me some money so I can send you even more money, that, you know, those kinds of scams. You know, those are annoying, but the catastrophe is not as large as, you know, a really important email not going through. So, what you do there, the reason why that's a good example for those statistical methods is not just that you have this simple idea of classifying spam or not spam, but you also get this idea in terms of setting a threshold for certainty that's maybe different from what you would say, do for other applications where really, it's kind of like a coin toss. You don't want to call it a coin toss, but like when you have a marginal case, you just sort of say, well, toss it up in the air and maybe we go one way, maybe we go another. So anyways, this is obviously something that's been going on for a while. It's why companies like Microsoft and Google have a real significant benefit to doing these kinds of problems, because they have just absolutely enormous email services. They're able to sort of train on the behavior of a lot of their users in a way that their competitors don't necessarily, or they're just simply not able to. And as a result, at least as far as these methods get better with more data, and obviously there are some limit, like not all statistical problems are solved by just throwing more data at the problem, but it can help. But this is one of the reasons why, spam detection is considerably better than it might have been, a few decades ago. But the interesting challenge now is that people aren't, for whatever reason, I think it's maybe just because we take these for granted, but that's not really where the action is as far as AI applications. What people are really interested in now are basically these virtual assistants. And I realize that this is a hot button issue for a lot of people, and that some people will really feel very strongly about, whether any of this should be allowed to exist. I'm really not in the camp of like no applications for AI whatsoever. I will also say though that a lot of the promise that I see whenever I play around with these tends to fall away after some more rigorous testing. It doesn't mean that I'm closed to the option. It just tends to mean that the initial promise I tend not to move beyond that initial promise. But again, people are responding to a demand from the market. But in this case here, taking a look at the summarizing feature, it is very, very interesting to see how we're actually, in this case, the AI assistant seems to be falling into some of the most basic spam tricks, right? So in this case here, this was a really simple one. It's a bank that I've never banked with. I maybe had a friend who worked for it once, is about as close as I can get to it. Never came up in any email conversation that I've had with this person. In fact, I don't even think my friend was there that long. I think they moved on to like Ernst & Young or something pretty quickly afterwards. But like, there's absolutely no reason to see why an email from this institution would be something that I would be interested in. And furthermore, it has all the hallmarks of, of a bad email, right? It's got an attachment to it. It's saying, if you don't reply within 48 hours, your accounts are going to be locked. All of this sort of stuff is like, you really shouldn't be opening that thing. Doesn't mean that it doesn't work, right? It would we wouldn't see it if there wasn't a reason for these people to send them out, right? Obviously, they're successful enough to be worth the cost of sending these. But this is the sort of thing that a more quote unquote stupid method, right? One of these classifiers would immediately flag as spam. Like, this is just one of these really, really basic cases that we've been able to handle for a long time. Oh, I have two. I realized it in the moment, like after I had clicked the link and entered some information. So out of an abundance of caution, I immediately reset the password for for that thing. And I was largely covered because like I am one of those nerds who does have a different password for literally everything. And I'm not talking about small variations. Like even at work, my coworkers like always joke about my preposterously long password. I was like, I'm not the one who's going to get compromised. So, of course, with that in mind, I'm totally going to be the one to get hit by it from some other, ridiculous reason. But at least my password is not duplicated, and it's not. It is hard to keep in mind, but. Yeah, no, it's totally, yeah, I think it's actually it's good to be honest about this stuff personally, because like if everybody's walking around, like in some cases, shame is also like something that allows these things to work. So for instance, I will occasionally get, some email, the variation is usually something along the lines of like, hey pervert, I hacked into your computer and I can see, what kind of porn you like, and I'm going to let your wife know. And, if you don't send me and I'm going to send it to all of your, oh yeah. And I turned on the webcam and, I'm going to send stuff to all of your, your families and your wife and all of that. I'm like, okay, well, yes, my wife, clearly I am, I'm doing whatever you do, please don't tell my wife. But like this is very clearly someone just going with a pretty low sophistication attack here. But it does have a Bitcoin address, and you can check the Bitcoin addresses, right? And there's definitely people giving money to that. It's one of these things where, I mean, the best that I can say, I think I am wired in a certain way. There is stuff that definitely bothers me. Like I'd be lying if I said I didn't have buttons that people can push, in terms of like things that get to me. But it is also very interesting because I often tend to find it's very interesting the circumstances under which those things bug me and don't. But the biggest one for me has always been like, if ever it comes down to a question of like public shaming or something like that, I guess, whatever people think about Jeff Bezos, like I actually really liked the way that he responded to his blackmail situation, where he's like, if someone like me can be blackmailed, like what hope does anybody else have? So, in this case, like just go public with it and let people know like this horrible thing that people are trying to do. And I think that's the right way to go about it. Essentially, just don't let these people have power over you. So, obviously choices like that have consequences, but I think one of these cases are like, that really is a case where, the penalty, the cost of that strategy, is something that, this is going to sound horrible, but like, this is the sort of thing that the victim to a certain extent controls. Hey, Vesper, how you doing? Yeah, it's just like one of these things where it's like, okay, sure, like, this will suck. And it's like, maybe they even find, that person that you have a big crush on, they're going to let the big, deep, dark secret or whatever it is. Or like whatever tiny little detail is the thing where you're like, I really hope they don't find that out or whatever. In the end, like it does come down to, I guess it just comes down to this idea that the person who wants this thing from me, this is not necessarily to my advantage, right? They're not making me do this thing because they want me to live a good and fulfilling life. They're doing this to coerce me into something that I wouldn't do on my own. And from that point, it's like, okay, well, this isn't exactly the foundation of a good and trusting relationship, right? Like it's really just a question as to whether or not you're going to let the panic of that future or, known or unknown attack, override your judgment of the thing that you control. And I don't know, maybe I'm just too spiteful or something like that, but I do sort of feel to a certain extent that I'm more likely to entrench if I get the impression that someone's trying that sort of stuff on me. I don't know, like I said. It's going good, you're chilling, procrastinating, making... Well, I mean, I'm procrastinating on the start of the stream, but it's nice to catch up with everyone. There is Vesper Fortune, somebody who I really enjoyed watching play Cultist Simulator, but is certainly not a Weather Factory exclusive streamer. Somebody who, in fact, very kindly gifted Ace Attorney to, and obviously I've been spending so much time in House of Light, I haven't gotten to it yet, but on that bright and magical day, it is something I intend to stream, and so you will all be able to thank Vesper for that when the time comes. But yeah, anyways, I realize this is a really long digression, but the big one for me that I just find so interesting is that when you use the quote unquote dumb methods, you can identify those spam emails pretty well. Not guaranteed, but like you have a pretty decent shot at not having to see them, or if you see them, they're relatively rare. But because the LLM is looking at what it's sort of trained on and what its understanding of human language is, those actually wind up in the priority emails just simply because, it's like, well, this seems like a really important message. Never mind that I don't have that context for like, this is in fact the, not the bank that this person goes with, and this doesn't look anything like the other banking messages, and so on and so forth. But again, it'll be interesting to see how these technologies develop. Sorry, I'm drinking a lot of tea because I need a lot of tea. So I did have a to-do list while I was busy musing about the state of our electronic assistants. So I want to level up Embury and Lapidary. That is currently being leveled at... So it's at 7, needs to go to 8. And I think I'm already generating the memories that I need for that. So I'm just going to go ahead and let that run. Now, Vesper, I'm sorry. I feel like I ask you this question a lot, but have you... Have you played Book of Hours yet? All right, the Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes, the wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs with which the Dwendrazons of the Manses keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. Oh, interesting. I'd love to... Please do let me know when you wind up playing it, because I'd actually really like to see your take on this. Zarog, wonderful to see you. Thank you for stopping by. I know this is not a usual start time for me, and I feel bad about that. The Invisible Opera, unfinished recording. The recording of a 1911 attempt at a performance of Wings Within Wings, the so-called Invisible Opera. The singers complete the skewbald aria, Beneath Our Skin and A Rose in Maya, without incident, but the Invisible Opera is dedicated to Faresref the Magpie, who delights in unexpected interruptions. The recording ends with a clamor of horrified voices, a grating metallic screech, and a soft brass buzzing that fades into burring silence. The skill is now level 7, its power aspects have also increased. Now, there might be other things that I can do, but honestly, for 30 seconds, I'm happy to just wait, although maybe I can make a little bit of cash while we wait. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. So after I level up Anbarian Lapidary, what I might do is I might go and try to open the package, just so I can get that out of the way. All right, advice on containment. Thyrza Blake discusses ways to keep wood things out of trouble and Mantis things in it. Thyrza is irritatingly light on specifics, insisting above all that the duties of an adept are the duties of a host, and that a conjured spirit should be kept in as luxurious a vessel as possible. Thyrza notes the similarities between the lantern-long habit of scrying, returning to the physical world despite their absence of a body by entering a mirror or light, and Pomander's techniques for confining Mantis long to mirrors. She wonders whether Pomander himself might be lured to visit Hush House if provided with a sufficiently alluring scrying. If I don't start at a normal time, how am I supposed to raid and pillage your library? I did say, I got a small, have you been hitting the maple syrup again, System Chalk, from the developer, but I said, will the Backers edition give you unlimited uses of the go in and rearrange somebody else's library feature? So it has been proposed by the greatest minds in the other factory community, but alas, no go in and mess with other people's library button yet. The Red Book of Brittany, a volume of ink lore gifted to St. Brendan's by Brian of Brittany, who was made Earl of Cornwall after the Norman Conquest. The red flower lies heavy, but the roots of the watchman's tree are constant. The red flower is described as the temptation of suffering, but its suffering can apparently be allayed when the copper fruit is enspelled with nectar aspect alongside herbs and infusions techniques. A variant of the same approach with the inks of power techniques outlined here can gentle lethe into a great ink. So I'm curious why I got the satisfaction. This suggests to me that there was a... Hang on, let's see where this goes. This suggests to me that there was something else that I wanted to use with the Grail. But I also want to make sure that this goes... Yep. Okay. Let me just take a look at my to-do list to see... it says here level up orchids and narcotics and to get a scent. That would be why. On Matthias and the Amethyst Imago Pursuit, an account of an occult romance, a certain Mech claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Theban branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who use the arts of water to conceal themselves. Matthias defied us to hunt the names of the moth and the wood to populate his pinned collection. The Amethyst Imago had dallied with the witch and sister, but she'd returned to the wood to plead the moth's pardon. The moth, as a whim or penance, sent her out to lure the Long to a slough of nightmares. Matthias loved the Imago. Did he? Can Long love, or has that organ of their soul desiccated beyond repair? The Imago loved Matthias. Did she, or did she only enact a whim? He pursued her through the wood, but at last she turned aside from the nightmare slough, and they lay together where the bounds grow bright. So they learnt the Grail's pleasures, and this is the lore they won. Bancroft Diaries. Lord Franklin Bancroft was initiated into the arts of the flower maker by the Rose Witch Fiona Ayrshire. He rose to become a society provider of occult services and secret pleasures before his abrupt disappearance in 1790. Bancroft seems to have been a talented adept, but devoted his energies to frustratingly whimsical projects, arranging grape-fetching races between Mansa spirits, teaching percussagants to juggle, and conjuring storms of imaginary blossoms for the Rose Witch Ayrshire, who resolutely refused to ever couple with him. Bancroft spends 20 pages bemoaning this last. The mantra here recorded is a high and exacting magic which can be used to pledge one's spirit to the Watchman, beginning an ascent to the house. Bancroft boasts of his ability to recite it when in his cups. He also had it set to music for a performance with fireworks at Vauxhall Gardens. The Ivory Book, a manual of the Ordo Limea, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Limia in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. This manual was compiled by one Curanai, who claims to have fled the tyranny of the Chrysanthemum throne to cross the world and join the Ordo. Members of the Ordo took an oath, the ivory chain, not to have commerce with the hours. Followed literally, this would be almost impossible for an adept, so the manual contains numerous clarifications, exceptions, and processes of indulgence. Kurenai describes the Order's burial rites, which include spells to ensure, in theory, that the souls of dead long are not given to the hours. The hour called the Ivory Dove, who memorializes and commemorates, is to be invoked in secret in these rites, for with that hour we have made an understanding. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think we've got what we need. The Beekeeper's Ends, dialogues with bees and the uses for honey as radically recorded by Ricardo Milagro, gardener of Hush House in Musgrave's time. Milagro spends an entire chapter on his hatred of wasps, which he describes as the vile pretenders. Milagro claims that bees retain many traditions passed down from earlier and greater branches of their species, but that they are fiercely jealous of these traditions being passed to lesser insects and insist above all on an oath of secrecy. Tragically, therefore, he is unable to describe the more substantial and powerful traditions. All right. So I have a pretty good idea of where this is all going. Let's start with the final level of this. Guess it doesn't really matter which of these I use, but I'll use the metal here. At last, I approach mastery. Bees are very, very cute. There was a bee city builder that I played on stream once upon a time, which was quite enjoyable. And, hey, the exception! Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, thank you very much. I feel like I got the gift. Always appreciated the exception. I never, like, I keep saying that I never want to take it for granted, but yours is always reliably a subscription that puts a smile on my face. So thank you very much for that. 81 months is a very, very long time. We're all old, I'm sorry, but yeah, actually, I feel like I should be playing the Indiana Jones game at this point, so that I can deliver on the clip. But yeah, no, thank you very much for the exception again. Never expected, but yours is definitely a sub that I am always happy to see. So thank you for that. I'm going to reward you all with this. I'm not going to put a, yeah. I always get in trouble when I say this, but I always like to give the example of inferior goods. These are the ones that, increase in consumption when incomes go down, and of course vice versa. When incomes go up, the consumption of the good goes down. So, you know, we were talking about spam. We could talk about the food product spam. Generally, when incomes are down, spam consumption will go up. It's affordable, and when the good times roll, people switch from that to something else. So lots of examples of inferior goods, but another one that is correlated with incomes tends to be children, right? Lower incomes tend to have larger number of kids. So by that logic, of course, we know that children are inferior goods. And on that note, I'm going to put the kettle on. I'm not going to make it a proper break. I'm just going to like turn on the kettle and go and sit back here. But I actually really do need something, a little something extra to drink. So, and it's probably not a good idea for me to just fill this cup with whiskey or something. So I will be back in just a moment. I won't put up the sign or anything. It should just only take a minute or two. You can all ponder the wisdom of babies being inferior goods. What do you mean I can't level up orchids and narcotics? You think you're better than me? All right, so we've got our Amber and Lapidary. The only thing that I don't seem to have made a note of is how I was going to level it up. So the only lesson that I have here is the Ragged Crossroads. So orchids and narcotics. Let me have a think here. So I want to get this to level 6 at some point. Heresy, Vesper Fortune. Actually, so after the Weather Factory and AMA, it's occurred to me that I've never tried Lapsang Souchong, but the description sounded intriguing. So I kind of want to try it. I just don't know where to find it. Okay, so spices and savors seems to be something that I could use to level up orchids and narcotics. I think that would be a good place to start because of the Newman. So I probably should have started reading this a little bit sooner, but better late than never. And I'll use the... I was originally going to use the Era, but it's actually better for me to use the Trist in this case. Because I have more of it. And the kettle's almost done, so I will be back in another moment. Back. Okay, I will return momentarily. Okay, thank you all for your patience. Hopefully this means I don't need to take a break later on, but we're not ready to talk about breaks yet. The writing on the wall, the most delicious traditions of the Carapace Cross as recorded on the walls of the Mansus and transcribed into a book of 99 pages by one known only as CC. Although this book does not exist, it is read to a sleeper under certain very specific circumstances and certain fragments jotted down on waking. This is a Vac text. Vac, before gods arose from blood, before ever ape stood upright. This was the language heard in the house of the sun. I am Vac, the peacock door boasted, both the tongue and the goddess. I am the only entrance into secret light. I was worshipped before you upright apes, and I will be still when all of you are ugly ash. Listen, and I will prove it. All right. Nectar full flower. I can master this mystery. Enough nectar to match mystery nectar. So I think we get 2 memories out of that. I need to wait the 30 seconds for the level up, but I'm going to grab some scent for that. May not be a bad idea for me to just do a quick review. Right, so I should read a book to get me the... Beguiling Melody again. I think that's going to be it Grail-wise, but let's just take a minute to double check. So Secret Thresholds, yeah. Cheerful Ditty and Bittersweet Certainties don't do the trick. Confounding Parable, really Nectar and Grail. Nectar's always a bit of a conundrum. So I already have the satisfaction. We have the gossip. We have the earth sign. And the rest of these don't give me any grail. Which I'm fine with. Like, I can live with this. But it would be a good idea. At minimum, I should get the scent. The other thing I can try and do is get some water. Although I still seem to have a bit of a surplus for that, so let's just let it run by. And then, of course, I still want to unlock the various caches, but I'll worry about that a little bit later. Now, I'm more or less signing myself up not to get the last of the... I'm more or less signing myself up to not get the rest of the orchids and narcotics taken care of, so I'll probably get the 5 out of this, but I am not reading a second book. So I'll live. Like, it's not a major hardship, but I should also just kind of keep my expectations in check in terms of what I'll have done for autumn. Now, of course, if we wind up getting hit by a Numa, that's fine. I'm actually would probably be okay with where I'm sitting for that if it comes down to it. But I don't exactly like. It's one of these things where if you shape every season around preparing for Numa, the majority of times it's going to be wrong. And so you should treat it like it's going to be wrong the majority of times. It doesn't mean that you don't prepare for Numa. Like, obviously, it's not great to go into another season with 45 lessons. You know, that is just a disaster waiting to happen. But on the other hand, like, you shouldn't really stress a whole lot about any given season. Although, again, maybe you should be a little bit more cautious as time goes by, right? Like, if you're like, you know what, it's been a while since we've had a Numa, well, yeah, prepare, right? You never know. But it is one of these things you don't want to spend, like, the whole game stressing over, because it's, one, not very fun, and number two, it doesn't come up that often. I mean, if the game needs to be adjusted so that you can summon Numa with an ink, probably it doesn't show up as often as you think it does when it comes to the, the ones that take away the lessons that you like. All right, rest and refreshment, summer. It is summer. I'm sitting on the bench outside the Sweet Bones, eating crumbly cheese and nettle wrappings and good black rye bread, soaking up the sun. Now, it might be, I don't feel it's that early for me to ask this, but does anybody have any big Christmas plans? Because I'm pretty sure streaming is the only special thing that happens for me. Okay, the Geminiad Volume 3, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language, few seen, is much older. Coral decorates its cover, and its page edges are sharp enough to slash a throat. These pages outline the nature and doctrines of an hour that demands the union of what has been separated, an hour that is sought at the water's edge and beneath the moon, the witch and sister. The language is elusive, enigmatic, intricate. It'll take some untangling. The 3rd volume of the Geminiad reminds us that the witch and sister has been known to manifest as the sister and witch, and that this face may heal while the other face is always hungry. It implies connections between the witch and sister and the hours of the wood, especially the secret keeper called the Velvet, but it is ambiguous on whether the witch and sister is a wood hour proper, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the two who are one, the sadness that remains from their time as flesh. So Algren says, my Christmas plans are continued existence and a few phone calls to family. Vesper says, you live with your family, so dinner is a given. Very nice. Oh yeah, actually I haven't figured that out for myself yet. I probably should try and think of some sort of food solution. I mean, there's a couple places that are open like 24 hours and every day of the year, so I've noticed that there's not a lot of late night coffee shops in the city, so I've taken to writing in restaurants a little bit more. Oh god, where's the closest KFC? I guess there's one in like a food court, but I'm guessing the food court's not going to be open Christmas. All right, the watchful potted plant. Not everything needs eyes. The sense of awareness persists, but the plant remains immobile, unsettling but harmless. It doesn't even have thorns. So again, unless I'd like to, drink something, we're really just waiting on the minute to pass. Now, while I wait for that minute, it seems like a good opportunity here to open up the package. So where did I put that? I think it was in the Transitus. Yeah. So let's use Shap to open this one. Something shipwrecked. What ship lost this? Just trying to think if there's anything else I can do with the rest of the day, but I'm actually kind of okay letting this run down. Oh, you know what I haven't done in a while? Oh, crap. Woo! I should have done this at the start. My apologies. I think it's because there's all the traveling at night material now at the top of the screen. I haven't been reflexively clicking on the advent calendar. So let's catch up because I think it was the so the 11th there was a oh, this is nice. Cool. So yeah, on the 11th, there was the snippet from Another World. 12 years ago, in the deep Krakow winter, you were hollowed out by worms from under the world, so you had to go away for a while. You're back, and you've something with you, something curled inside you, something that will open all doors. So this was a fragment for what was the impending release of Traveling at Night. On Thursday the 12th, in-game, something musky, collected from Reverend Timothy's Christmas tree. Friday the 13th, desktop and mobile wallpaper of Nina Lagasse for Traveling at Night. Our just announced RPG. So let me see if I can find where that is. It should be in the On the House section. Oh yeah, it's right there. Let me just take a quick look at this. Oh, that's a good looking one. I should set this as my wallpaper at work. That would be not permitted, but... Oh, it just occurred to me you could all see my tabs, so... yes, I am a nerd. So yeah, for those of you who would like that, that's not, it looks like that's not the only one, by the way. It looks like there's also one for the glasses. So that I quite like this one, actually. I like the Nina Lagasse one too, but yeah, for those of you who are inclined for fancy desktops, there you go. Okay, so that was the... Ah, nice. Okay, Saturday the 14th, something from the shores of Brandkrug, collect it from Reverend Timothy's Christmas tree, and oh, maybe this was the one for the 15th, so desktop and mobile wallpaper of concept art from Traveling at Night. So I think that was the... Yep. So it looks like that was that was actually the concept. Anyway. Oh, was that? Did you just see? Did you just become aware of the Traveling at Night announcement, Vesper? Because we got to talk. if so, if you all forgive me if I've sounded slightly distracted, it's because I have been realizing slowly over time that there's not exactly a smudge. I think it's just like some dust on my glasses, and it's actually starting to drive me a little crazy now. So I'm just gonna get my cloth and deal with it. I actually got this really cool pattern on microfiber cloth. Like I'm a complete sucker when it comes to gift shops, so I did pick up one of those, but it's still in the packaging, and I don't quite want to crack that open yet. So I think I've been hearing about it. I think this is the first time that you saw the official announcement. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I mean, it's and to a certain extent, this actually by far is one of the most interesting. So there's definitely been some suggestions about what this is going to be. I don't think it's ever gone like completely. This is what we're doing for sure, but the signs that have been there. But I think one of the things that's the most interesting to me is how like this is definitely a game when you read the kinds of announcements from Weather Factory and just the way they've been talking about it. Like, to me, the enthusiasm for this project was very, very clear. So like, there's the press release that says like, we are excited to announce ... And then there's like the developer who's just chomping at the bit, I guess champing anyway, at the bit to tell you about it, right? That's the kind of enthusiasm that I was seeing from this, and it's a hard one to fake. But I think the other thing that's kind of neat about this, right, is that you would think that this is the obvious kind of project for Weather Factory to do. So for those of you not familiar with it, Traveling at Night is the third game in the Secret Histories setting, where it's a CRPG style game, and they've sort of said that it's in the Disco Elysium style. I don't necessarily think that it's in, like, obviously the worry I imagine if you're going to do that is there's a bunch of competing Disco Elysium successors that are that are being worked on right now. So I don't necessarily think they want to specifically draw that connection other than, hey, DK Marzipan. Yeah, so like I think the better way to take this here is it's taking the idea that when you thought of CRPG, chances are you thought of something where there would be a turn-based combat system, or at the very least possible real-time. Something like, the old Baldur's Gate games, if not the new one just is a really impressive game all around. So I don't think it's realistic to expect like indie teams to do something like that. But like this is the sort of thing that I think people think of when it comes to RPGs. Whereas if you think of something like Disco Elysium, it's definitely one of these things where you hear, I didn't think I could do this in a game. Right. And I think I talked about this before where like, you're like Will Wright and you're making a helicopter game and you're making cities for the helicopter game. And then you just sort of realize that you're actually having more fun in the editor for the for the helicopter cities than you are making your helicopter game. And so you make SimCity. Or The Sims, actually, this is one thing. I know people like to hate on EA, but like apparently Maxis was losing faith in The Sims. And it was EA that actually pushed the game like to keep going. So this is definitely not a story you hear. Usually what you hear is like the publisher just, pulled the plug on this promising game before it had a chance to become something. And that, I mean, the reason why that comes up frequently is because that is usually the fate of a lot of games. XCOM was apparently canceled like 2 different times, but they kept working on it. And then when a gap showed up in the, in the release schedule, they're like, okay, actually, we're still working on this thing for a long time. And then it turned out to be a very, very successful game. Yeah, so I think the Disco Elysium inspiration for traveling at night is more the idea of saying, a lot of these things that you used to think it would be, you looked at this and you say, you have to have this for it to be a CRPG. I think what has happened is Weather Factory has taken that inspiration from Disco Elysium, and instead of trying to retread what Disco Elysium did, what it's doing instead is it's taking that same sort of bold approach to the CRPG and said, we're going to put our own mark on this. And I think that's always the most exciting place to be, right? But again, with that in mind, right, you would think that by this point, these developers would have done a CRPG. It really just seems to be the sort of thing that they would do well at. But this is the first one. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do with it. But okay. But I also need to stop talking about it lest I wind up in a case where I'm still playing House of Light, my first run on House of Light, when Traveling at Night comes out. At a nickel for every Disco Elysium successor, you'd have 6 nickels. It's not that much, but it's weird that it's happened 6 times. Indeed. Okay, we'll read the introduction again. The writing on the wall, the most delicious traditions of the Carapace Cross, as recorded on the walls of the Mansis and transcribed into a book of 99 pages by one known only as CC. Although this book does not exist, it is read to a sleeper under certain very specific circumstances and certain fragments jotted down on waking. It was hunger that made worms of dragons when they consumed the corpses of ours. Without the savor secret of the Carapace, their hunger would not have been sufficient. Here is outlined the savor secret of the Carapace, which harnesses hunger to permit impossible hybridizations. With this secret, even the most potent and fundamental entities have devoured and been devoured, and this, no doubt, is why it's secret. An irresistible feast. Now, by the way, I know a lot of people are really bothered by the Wormwood Dream image. There's definitely a few of these which are pretty, pretty horrifying to behold, but I think An Irresistible Feast is definitely the one where I first looked at that and I'm like, this is a wild one. But there you have it. An Irresistible Feast. It was hunger that made worms of dragons when they consumed the corpses of ours. With the savor secret of the Carapace, their hunger would not have been sufficient. In certain histories, that savor secret still has power. Any librarian can use this to establish a history and complete the game, but the artist can use it to win a particular victory. And 2 spices and savors. So let's see if we can lock that in before the end of the day. We'll wait the 0.5 seconds for the level up. So Granite Slab, Long Cold Volcano Blood, and Ava's Lock. So if I want more Preparation H, we can use that to make another one. Alright, and Forsaken Packages. So I'll put this on the Vestibulum Transitus. We will we'll deal with that in autumn. Alright, let's get going with Orchids and Narcotics. So the ultimate destiny for this will be level 6, if I'm not mistaken. And I think what I'm going to do here, let's take the Beguiling Melody. Actually, I'm going to work out the books that I can read first. Okay, so I'm going to read the Geminiad Volume 2 for the... I guess we're reading them in the reverse order, so we'll get a satisfaction out of that. This needs... Let's go for Whist. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. So the rest, I guess, doesn't really matter at this point, so I'll go for another Gossip. I guess we can do Impulse too. I genuinely don't remember which... I guess we did Ricardo Milagro, so we'll do... or Beekeeper's Ends by Ricardo Milagro, and we'll read the Cucurbit Prisoner Records. 1927. Okay. This is probably the way I should be doing it, which is what book do I want to read and letting that determine what skills I use, but sometimes I just need to get something in there. All right, I'm gonna use the Arab for a start. I'll have to set aside 1 health. Another fruit plucked from Knowledge's tree. Improve the skill to level 4. And then what else? Actually, I only needed 2. Although maybe I can keep one of them overnight. Maybe we'll try to hang on to the Beguiling Melody. So it wouldn't be a bad idea for me to use my Elements of the Soul to try and get some more stuff. So we'll drop some water. I could be making something for the next Salon, but I won't worry too much about that. We haven't had any problems so far. We'll pluck some of the flowers. Now, I'll confess, this is really me playing for my my YouTube series, where I'm sometimes running into a little bit of difficulty getting the flowers that I need, but whatever. I'm gonna lose these, you know, by the end of the day anyway, right? And kind of all hands on deck in terms of the last few bits of collection I can do. Although again, I don't really need more stuff. All right, so I keep forgetting we've got the gull colony that we can visit too, so that's good for a Faust. And on top of that, we have the sea caves. Oh, I think I blundered on that one because I don't have a scale to give up and I don't have a moon. So never mind. I'm okay leaving it there. And then maybe making a little money at the Sweet Bones, but that'll happen later. Once I've leveled up Orchids and Narcotics, I'll do a quick review of where my to-do list is, but I think probably all of that'll happen in the I've had that happen a couple of times. I'd use GIMP, the what is it, GNU image manipulation program. And like I don't, it's like I really like that a resource like that is available. I also know a lot of people claim that it is a replacement for Photoshop. I wish that was true, but I don't find the interface. Now, I haven't spent a lot of time in Photoshop, but I definitely don't find the interface as intuitive as some of the Adobe stuff. And again, that makes sense. Like, you know, open source is wonderful. I am very grateful for the things that it allows me to do. But I also think that they very often bear the stamp of a project which people are involved with because they are interested in it, right? They want to do interesting computer science problems. And generally people who want to do interesting computer science problems are not people who are thinking about user interfaces and, you know, that kind of design, right? So if you can think of all of the different cool things that you can implement in SIGGRAPH, you know, you'll get those great contributions to like Blender or something, but you're not necessarily going to see the same care and attention going into making it something that a consumer can use. Now, I'm speaking very generally because, of course, there are some like Linux distributions which really do make it easier to work with things. But I'd still argue today, I know a lot of very technical people do not like Apple's ecosystem. I think there is a reason why consumers are very happy with Apple's ecosystem and developers are very annoyed by it. It's because Apple knows where they get their money from, the consumer. Whether or not that's a good thing, totally separate question, right? So I realize there are a few developers who watch this channel and are probably ready to strangle me at this point. But yeah, with that in mind, Vesper, I'm definitely not a good artist by any stretch of the imagination, but I do tend to find that I basically have the same attitude as you. It's like, oh, I'm really committed to this horrible path. It'll be fine. That's a tomorrow me problem. Okay. Yeah, let's give it the 30 seconds and then we'll do the last little bit of leveling up. Does mean that I won't open the package, but that's fine. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. Right, the Geminiad Volume 2, a fragile manuscript illuminated with twin shapes of sad and luminous beauty and with all the phases of the moon. It might be as old as the 7th century, but the language Fusine is much older. The cover is a dark and exotic leather with a smooth, almost chitinous surface, decorated with jasper. These pages outline the 7 bloody natures of the daughters of Lagia, those corrupted immortals who gave birth to children in defiance of the laws of the upper heaven, who devoured them in obedience to the hour's punishment, and who have been left outside the law. The second volume of the Geminiad suggests that these 7 corrupted immortals have been accorded the privileges of names of the witch and sister, or perhaps the sister and witch. It reminds us that the twins unite what is apart, and that the crime of the sky is in some sense a supreme joining, and it speaks at length about the sadness of the 7, the sadness of mothers whose children are forever lost, and far worse than lost. The Kukurbit Prisoner Records, 1927, accounts by Governor Collar's private secretary of interventions and experiments in the last years of the Kukurbit prison, focusing entirely on prisoners he believes might have Carapace Cross lineage. 2 prisoners suspected of Oniric crimes are encouraged to access their inner Carapace Cross tendencies and develop the attributes of the Seglaz kind, sickle-formed pseudocrustacea. Regrettably, they lose the ability to breathe air, and one dies, and Collars releases the other into the sea. Collis describes how he successfully induced an unstable carapace larva to develop into a greater form, using insects and nectars techniques in the context of considerable moon aspect to awaken what would rather remain hidden. He hopes that similar techniques might be used to expedite the moral development of prisoners. Humors of a Gentleman, Samuel Savage's satirical comedy on the intrigues of the ailing but cunning John's son, his mistress Mavelyn, her lover Leo, and the upstart Corvino. By the end of the first act, Mavelyn has revealed a secret door in the walls of the house to Leo, and Corvino is taken to consuming worms. The play is scabrous and occasionally hilarious. The characters are contrary and capricious. Many of the more resonant lines might well be formula of power disguised in plain sight. All right. Orchids and narcotics. Throw some health at you. Satisfaction, impulse, gossip, scent. Spices and savors. So satisfying to have come so far. Improve the skill to level 5. And finally, we will bring over the Beguiling Melody, because I figure if we don't have a Numa to work with, we're going to have a... we're going to prioritize leveling up Orchids and Narcotics. Gather the spiny fluorescences of the sea holly. Sea holly umbelled spiny flowers, the steel blue of a winter afternoon. In summer, trumpeter's lily flourishes like a shout, a glorious efflorescence of sunset orange. Gather in summer, moth orchid is soft as velvet to the touch, except when it changes. Gather the scented blossoms of the fragrant chalice. The history plant has risen. Gather its blooms. Agave eterna, the history plant, unlike its cousin, the century plant, blooms every year. Perhaps it will do so forever. Drop water. A little water splashes on the stones of the well to nourish the mosses there. Excuse me. Scraps from the Isle's edge. Well, you got a wind rumor, but it's going to go away, right? Basically, as soon as the evening finishes, dawn comes, however you want to phrase it. Where can I? Excuse me. And sea-strewn, salt-snared stuff. If a cloud were a canvas, who spread it? If the sky were a sheet, who knotted it? A wind rumor is an auspice found in the sky by those who look too long, interpretable only by the wise. The skill is now level 5. Its power aspects have also increased. So one thing that's worth thinking about here, in terms of things that I can use to level up orchids and narcotics, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. The green jasper tablet is the most likely candidate for this, which will give me both nectar and moth. So I may want to think about what other... So I'm just waiting to see what the weather brings. Okay, so we know that it's a... Actually, we don't know if it's Numa or not. We want to see the season actually start. But rain will help me level up. Okay. I've carried a memory like a flambeau safe through the mazes of night. This will complete once dawn has come. So we're actually in good shape to level up orchids and narcotics. We've already got 3 of the 5 that we require. So, like I said, I was going to review the to-do list as well. So we finished leveling up Anbury and Lapidary. Oh, interesting. So it says here, after leveling up Orchids and Narcotics, prepare the salon. So, and then prioritize lessons in containers. So I more or less know these steps that I'm going to take. I'm not going to worry too much about that. So yeah, I do want to think about the salon, but given the fact that we've Orchids and Narcotics is a good band name. This is a shame. So what would have been better with the... so if I'd been thinking, the spices and savors lessons that I would have gotten from these would have been better for me. It would have been better for me to start by leveling up with the Green Jasper tablet and then use the spices and savors. And that's because I could have used the remaining spices and savors to level up pentiments and precursors. As it is, Furs and Feathers needs Sky and Scale. Sacrosalis and Victi needs Sky and Lantern. Orchids and Narcotics needs a Grail or a Nectar, whereas Pentiments and Precursors needs a Grail and a Scale. So let's just see our options here. Yeah, so this is Grail and Moon. Right now I'm going to look for any Grail and Nectar. So this will give me one too many. Oh, now this is interesting, actually. So I could use this. Yeah, this does it for me because Orchids and Narcotics gets the Grail, but so does Pentiments and Precursors. So 1,000 threads is exactly what I need for this reading. Okay, we will take Kilisimi. And the biggest Grail that I can put, which actually I think I'm coming up short. Yeah, I need 2 more. So I guess the question is, am I willing to give up one of these memories in order to be able to... Yeah, I definitely am. It's not that hard for me to get the required Grail and Nectar. Okay, so we'll use the Beguiling Melody just because it's a renewable one. So I can master this mystery, enough Grail to match Mystery Grail. So with that in mind, let's renew the memories that I need. So I'll start with the Beguiling Melody. I think it's just the Lake Fusino recordings in this case, yeah. Okay, that's a start. So in this case, it actually makes sense for me to get as much Grail as I can get my hands on. Oh, there is another thing I want to do. Because we're going to be waiting for a book, I might as well open the package. Something odd. Crack open the container, delight in your discovery. Forsaken packages, they plead mutely to be opened. No one else ever cared to. All right, so at the Pale Desk, again, it's all Nectar and Grail at this point, although Scale is also an option too. So we're already getting the Beguiling Melody. I guess we can use, wait a minute, why do I want, yeah, Nectar and Grail, this doesn't satisfy that, so. Hindsight gets me the Scale, though. So I guess we read Nin's Cages last time. So now we're going to read the pop-up book version. I'm trying to remember. I'm going to slightly rearrange the library here just so that it can have the Orchid Transfigurations sitting beside each other. Oh, shame on you. All right. Sure, we'll go with that. Okay. So normally I would kind of be caring about the order or the quantities that I need, but in this case we're gonna go crashing straight into into pentiments and precursors. So I'm just gonna load up on whatever grail I can get my hands on. And then any scale as well at this point. And if I have too much, it's not the end of the world. I think we're sort of past the point where I need to care about the individual memory or individual elements of the soul that I'm hanging on to. I'm doing okay. Okay, Locksmith's Dream Volume 3. And then the solace isn't something we're going to worry about here. I'm going to take some time in the Sweet Bones. We might as well make a bit of money. I'm also not opposed to going to Crowcross Sands and the Moor. But I do want to make sure that I'm focusing on the next lessons that I can get. So, we're opening a package. Obviously, we're not opening the caches that I want, but we'll worry about that later. It would make sense for me to prepare the next Solon. So I suppose the first question would be, who do I want to invite? Oh, you know what? That is a question I'm going to ask once I see whether or not the Affair of the Unfinished Lark is finished. Because if it is finished, I'm going to want to see who I can invite to see how the story progresses. So I can see myself adding Douglas Moore and Aaron Peel. They kind of have a continuing story kind of going on in terms of the salons. And I could try another elite meeting, or this time maybe I'll try like a prole meeting where everybody who's like a 3 or higher plus Aaron comes in. All right, empty. Now, I'm trying to think here. So when it comes to an avenue of inquiry, actually, no, it's too late to do that. Okay, yeah, I really need to think about how I can make the avenue of inquiry work for me, because it's occurred to me, unless I write down what the event is, yeah, okay, so I'll have like an empty period, and I can try and force an event, but there's no guarantee that the visitor is interested in this particular event. So I think at this point, I'll maybe hold off on using the avenue of inquiry. But yeah, I'm definitely going to wait to see what the deal is. I want to see who I can invite before I I start messing around with the... another Lignum Vitae blank. I don't think I'm going to have the room... Nope. Bridge it is, then. Okay, reading time. Nin's Cages, Bruges text illuminated. The merciful measures of the witch Nin. This is only a partial version of the original, but it contains illustrations by Nin's pupil, Maybelline of Bruges, which supplement the original. Nin's stated aim was to keep beyond the walls of sleep that business which should not trouble the world. This includes fever, madness, and delirium, as well as spirits identified as devourers and deceivers. Maybelline clearly enjoyed drawing both devourers and deceivers, but was less interested in illustrating disease symptoms. Nin warns against invoking the edict liminal or inviolable before sleep, for no matter how secure a lock may be, its key will surely open it. Maybelline has helpfully illustrated this by drawing a sleepwalker clambering through an open window, about to leap into the jaws of a sea monster. The sea monster is goggle-eyed with happy anticipation. The Orchid Transfigurations, A Feast, a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. The illustrations are certainly striking. They flush the skin and glow beneath the eyelids after the book is closed. We must devour to be devoured. We cannot be undevoured, as we cannot be unborn. Oh, that's interesting. I misshelved this one, clearly. So that's also kind of annoying because I'm really running out of space for the intuitions. So we'll try for another satisfaction. You know what? Let's wait on that. Lake Fusino recordings of the folk dances of the Fusine marshes, the wailing of flutes, the roaring of drums, cries like birds lost in the marshes. These are the songs that the sisters sang to the witch, that the Thunderskin roared to the sky, the songs which the Duendrazons of the with which the Duendrazons of the Mansis keep their vigil. Once heard, they are not forgotten. The Leonine Tantra. In the most notorious translation of the Leonine Tantra, Ashley Phillips is listed as the translator, but their existence is explicitly denied in the prologue. This confusion is characteristic of books which mention the Great Hooded Princes. The Tantra describes elliptically the Great Hooded Princes and the multitudinous ways in which they influenced wars against foreign invaders of the land of the Great River, although in a sense they were also invaders. Lions can be created, not as children are created, nor as words are created, but as weapons are created. The Great Hooded Princes learnt to create lions from their spyings on the affairs of the hours, and not all lions now serve the Golden General. I should probably do a better job of dividing between the Grail and Scale stuff. Unhatched hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next, madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymns of the phases celebrate the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the Reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadow, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. The Queens of the Rivers, a surreal contemporary play by the enigmatic Monica Medina, in which the Queens of the Rivers are murdered one by one. The Queen of the Vistula is poisoned. The Queen of the Dnieper chokes on a fishhook. The Queen of the Tagus is burnt alive. The culprit, it transpires, is the audience. The surviving queens are directed to execute whatever audience members do not escape. A surprisingly lucid epilogue suggests that the correspondence of river names with historical events does provide clues to secret histories behind our own. The Locksmith's Dream Trespasses, the third volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. In this volume, notoriously, Galmier's prose begins to disintegrate, and it is not clear which dreams are in fact her own. The woman in the sand-colored robe has told me the stairways of the mantis go ever up, death is down. The mother of ants guards both directions with each of her heads, and so the passage must always be through a wound. I think the white door might be a wound. That's one reason the dead sometimes pass it. I think I have the other half of the secret now, and I hope my reader can put both halves together. Okay. Now, if I want to try and level up Orchids and Narcotics, it takes 5, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If I want to upgrade Pentiments and Precursors, it's going to take 6. Now, this is an interesting challenge here. So if I do 1, 2, 3, 4... If I do Scent, this is a slightly more appealing option. So what I'll do here... This is going to seem a little crazy in terms of how I'm doing this, but I've got the Newman, Beguiling Melody, Gossip, and Impulse. So anything Grail, so basically the Irresistible Feast, the Beguiling Melody, and the Gossip. It doesn't have to be the Irresistible Feast, by the way. I have other options. But basically what I want to do here is I want to make sure I have as many elements, or as many memories that I can use to level up Pentiments and Precursors. So here we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the 5th will be Scent. And then what I'll have after reading these, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Actually, yeah, I don't even need to do that many. The only one I'm not trying to renew is the Impulse. So we can read the Morphe Codex. And we can get the Gossip. Wait, what are you doing up here? Right, that was for the Satisfaction. And then maybe what I'll do here is I'll read the Sun Disfigured. A story has no beginning or end. Arbitrarily, one chooses that moment of experience from which to look back or from which to look ahead. Graham Greene. Out of curiosity, because I feel like I can ask this one. I like Graham Greene for sure, but I also feel like this is a good question to ask because Greene is listed as one of the inspirations for, well, would it be good to say inspiration? For lack of a better term, I'll say inspiration. Maybe touchstone might be a better term or reference. But Greene did come up in some of the discussions surrounding traveling at night. So has anybody here read Graham Greene? Is anybody a fan? Does anybody have favorites they want to mention? I probably won't read it for the Christmas reading. I think I've got it. It's narrowed down to 2 candidates, but I think it'll be good. Hey, Revive Snow! This is an unexpected and delightful raid. Hello, everybody from Revive Snow stream. Lovely to see all of you. I'm sure some of you may know me from the occasional host that I give to... Is one of the candidates Snow? Well, I mean, I can say if you want, but I think some of the fun can be... so it's fun to talk about what we've done historically. We've done A Christmas Carol. I really like doing that. And then last year we did the Sherlock Holmes story, The Adventure of the Blue Carbuncle, which, for lack of a better term, would be, I'd like to call that the Sherlock Holmes Christmas special. So if I can, I'd like to do something a little Christmas related, but there's no rule saying that it has to be. But let me just take a quick minute here and introduce all of you to Revive Snow. I think maybe half of the audience here has actually come from Snow's channel, so this may be irrelevant, but Revive Snow is a fellow Canadian broadcaster. Some of you may know me from hosting Snow's channel, and some of you who do know me from that will know that I very frequently play a game called Book of Hours. This is a very unique kind of crafting role-playing game by a company called Weather Factory, who actually just recently announced the next game that they're going to be doing. It's a proper CRPG called Traveling at Night. But basically, this is a game where you sort of inherit an occult. When I say inherit, you inherit the job. You don't inherit the library itself, but you're responsible for maintaining an occult library. And it takes place sort of in Cornwall in this fictional setting known as the Secret Histories, and you get to explore the house and all of the books inside of it. It's a very unique game. It's a game I'm very, very fond of. But for those of you who don't know Revive Snow, fellow Canadian broadcaster, somebody who does a VTuber persona and does text-to-speech. Like I said, I've never really seen a stream like this before, but I have a lot of fun hanging out in Snow's stream. I also often feel very safe being able to host Revive Snow just simply because usually they do stream later than I do. And so it's always just nice to be able to host someone. I always like saying that I can speak to Snow's talents and taste as a broadcaster because the first thing that I saw them stream was Phantom Brigade. But of course, it's one of these things where you like watching a streamer, you hang out regardless of what game they're playing. And very often I actually find out about new games watching the Snow channel. So it's always a lot of fun. I never get to spend as much time as I like because I very often raid when I am sort of at the end of a long day. Kind of like today, actually. But I always appreciate the raid, and I always appreciate a chance to hang out with Snow's audience. So I hope you're all doing well, and thank you for hanging out, because I know I'm definitely a very different flavor than Snow. In case you haven't noticed, I talk a lot. Yes, this is one of the rare times I'm the later streamer. And I actually have work in the morning too, so it's a questionable choice on my part, but you know what? We'll take it. Now, Vesper Fortune here. One of the things that I get to do when I'm playing a game like this is to talk about books that I really enjoy. So Vesper Fortune says, I don't think I'm personally familiar with Graham Greene. Probably the two that stick out in my mind are, one, I both read this but saw the adaptation as well. So there is a book that he wrote called The Quiet American. Really enjoyed that. That's the same English class that I took where the prof was definitely focused on sort of stories about, international locations. So we did The Year of Living Dangerously. We did a book called Cambodia, a book for people who think television's too slow. That wasn't particularly enjoyable, but it was a Canadian author. I never would have been able to read it. I never would have read it had I not done it for a class. So I think it's acceptable for that. We did The Quiet American. I really liked that one, and I feel like there was another one that we did. Maybe we did Heart of Darkness with him as well. I don't recall. But yeah, The Quiet American's a really interesting one, and I actually thought the movie adaptation was decent as well. It stars Brendan Fraser as, oh Christ, what is his name? It's not Pyle, is it? Hang on, I've got it here. I thought I had it here. It is Pyle. All right, here's the back of the... So actually, the copy I had, I lent to someone, and they never gave it back. So here is the back cover for my copy of The Quiet American, which is advertising now a major motion picture. The intrigue and violence of Indochina... Sorry, into the intrigue and violence of Indochina comes Pyle, a young idealistic American sent to promote democracy through a mysterious third force. As his naive optimism starts to cause bloodshed, his friend Fowler, a cynical, foreign correspondent, finds it hard to stand aside and watch. But even as he intervenes, he wonders why, for the sake of politics or for love, which I don't really feel quite does justice to this story, but there you have it. Other quotes: a superb storyteller, he had a talent for depicting local color, a keen sense of the dramatic, an eye for dialogue, and skill in pacing his prose. Another quote: a great writer who spoke brilliantly to a whole generation, prophet-like, Alec Guinness. Quote: there has been no novel of any political scope about Vietnam since Graham Greene wrote The Quiet American, Harper's. And finally, one of the finest writers of any language, Washington Post. So the other one that comes to mind is one that was, I don't even know if it was adapted into a film or if it actually had its origins in the film and then there was a story that was done as well. But there's a really good movie starring, I think it's Joseph Cotten and Orson Welles, called The Third Man. I have a feeling The Third Man's going to be a bit more relevant to traveling at night. But that one, if you've not seen the movie, like unless you just straight up don't like black and white movies, you really do go out of your way and check out The Third Man. There was a nice Criterion edition that was done ages ago, but chances are your local library will almost certainly have a copy of it. Another thing I forgot to do, so there is that Graham Greene quote we got going on this one here. A story has no beginning or end. Arbitrarily, one chooses that moment of experience from which to look back or from which to look ahead. So I do, at the end of this, like to give the summary of the event that we were looking at. So, the affair of the unfinished lark. For 3 years, the sculptor adept Zuthimalim Zidane has labored at his masterpiece, an abstract sculpture that speaks with the voice of the desert lark. And now, puzzlingly and suddenly, he is dead. Morgan, Mademoiselle Matutine, hoped to complete Zidane's work, and at Hush House, or so she believed, she found what she needed to do so. Serena, whatever Dr. Blackwood found at Hush House, it convinced her that Zidane had used Ye's metal in his work. Azita believed Zidane had been murdered, and after investigating possible motives, speculated that he had been eavesdropping at the keyholes of heaven. Hokebald, Magister Hokebald, planned to salvage Zidane's work when it was, as he hoped, sold for scrap. I wonder if he's doing it for the New King's project. Eason had hoped that Zidane's memorial composition might be played on the unfinished lark itself, but after researching the matter at Hush House, he came to believe that it might be too dangerous. No, not Pokeball. Peter Agdistis. Mr. Agdistis wrote a memorial piece for Zuthimalim Zidane, and finally Olympi. At Hush House, Madame Bichet learnt enough, she hoped, to persuade a wealthy patroness to purchase the unfinished lark and save it from being sold for scrap by the authorities, which, of course, I think conflict between Olympi and Hokebald is interesting, although Olympi is already inspired, so gameplay-wise, it may not be the wisest choice for me to satisfy her curiosity. Anyways, that is the event that just finished. And with House of Light, there are now further stories. So we will see what we get to do in about 3.5 seconds. Corso has arrived. Signor Corso Reverte, manuscript hunter, legacy scavenger, mercenary. Many would question his ethics, few would deny his acuteness. The Unfinished Larks. What secrets enabled Zuthi Zidane's masterwork? So, Azita, assist Azita with Zuthi's secrets. Morgan assist Morgan with Zuthi's secrets, or Serena assist Serena with Zuthi's secrets. All right. So let's. Actually, I think that's my Salon then, because if I'm going to be inviting Aaron Peel and Douglas Moore. Oh. I almost forgot to write down the Irresistible Feast. So that's 5 edge. I will also say, for those of you that are hanging around, especially off of Snow's stream, I realize this is a pretty tough game to get into this late in. So if anybody has any questions about what's going on, some people just like to listen to a Canadian accent sort of wash over them for a couple of hours, and I'm totally fine with that. But for those of you that would like to know a little bit more about this setting in the game, I'm very happy to explain, even if we're going from the very beginning. So, because again, for the people who want to hear Canadian accent wash over them for a couple of hours, I don't necessarily think it matters what we talk about. But for those of you that are maybe deciding if this is a game you want to pick up, I think the Steam sale starts tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. This will maybe help you make a decision as to whether or not this winds up on your wish list or in your cart. Okay, for me, I'm going to focus on inviting some people for a lunch. So definitely Douglas Moore. I know he wants Lantern. Now, Aaron Peel. This one we've gotten wrong a couple of times. I thought it was Moth because I wrote that down incorrectly, but if I recall correctly, Peel would like Moon. He does. So then it's Azita, Morgan, and Serena. That's actually not that far off from who I invited already. I'm pretty sure Azita wants Edge. Morgan wants Sky. And I think Serena takes anything. No, Serena takes Forge. Oh, it's Yvette. Yvette that I was thinking of. Beginning sleep preparation, so you're mostly in lurk, soaking in the ambiance. Works for me, Algrins. I hope you have a good sleep when you get around to it. Okay, I'm going to take a minute here to consult a spreadsheet that I've been running for my cooking. So we've got a handful of candidates for the Lantern. We've usually gone for either an orange jumble, Madeira cake, or a stuffed golden marrow. So maybe I'll leave that aside. Let's decide what we want for the moon instead. So for moon food, oh, you know what? So let's do pickled mackerel or pilchards. For the moon. For the edge, oh, leek soup might be a fun one. Yeah, let's do leek soup. I'm trying to change it up in terms of the salons that I do. Now, Sky will be fun. I think we'll probably do something with pheasant for that one. So our options here... So scrambled egg is a first course, or cold pheasant is as well. So yeah, we do need a main. So I suppose the options here would be roast pheasant, which would be forge, heart, scale, and Sky. or we could do jugged pheasant, which would be edge, heart, grail, scale, and sky. So I mean, it does satisfy the edge side, but let's roast the pheasant. That's a great emote, Vesper. Okay, so we're short a pudding. And we also need 4. So we may actually wind up doing the orange jumble anyway. Let's see what we can do forge-wise. So for pudding, honey haunted, amber pumpkin pie, baked pear meringue. Ooh, we haven't done a pear meringue in a while. Apple pie we haven't done at all. Mind you, I need dough for that. I don't know. What's my flour situation like? Oh, wow. I really need to get some flour in here. So noted. Okay, so Walls of Ys gives us a ton of forge. Pumpkin pie, although again, that needs dough. So let's say anything with dough is off the table for now. But yeah, an apple meringue, pear meringue. Let's do an apple meringue. It's been a while. Oh, hang on. Can I do a meringue? Because I don't think I have eggs. Ah. I should have thought of that. Right. Well, here's something I'm going to check. So a meringue needs an egg and sugar. Oh, hang on. I don't have sugar either. I can't make any of the desserts. Ah! Okay. I'm going to take a quick look at the puddings that I can make. So puddings need dough, meringue, bread. But then we don't have the bread, so... yeah, I'm not getting away with cheaping out on ingredients. Okay. So rather than worry about the rest of that, let's go back to our lantern choices, and I think I've got a golden marrow here somewhere. Actually, this is the last of those options. So there's something more interesting than a golden marrow I can do right now. Well, not really, unless I want 2 puddings. I think I'll settle for the golden marrow, but we will draw it out before we do it. Okay, so with that in mind, we're tying up a lot of the desks, but we should be able to do this at the governor's desk. So let's get... sugar and... nope, wrong one. Yeah, sugar and flour. Let's do 5 flour and 5 sugar. Okay, now we're not prevented from doing... like, we do have options in terms of what we can do for the salon. So let's just say here, golden marrow. And then... actually, you know what? We haven't done an apple pie. So instead of an apple meringue, let's do an apple pie. So I can at least start by making the various side dishes and such. And I'm actually gonna, it's been a while since we've hosted a salon in the Hall of Voices, so I'm gonna clear everything out of here. Move it up to the refectory, and then we will set up for a salon in the dawn period area. So this is going to take a little effort just to move everything, but Vesper, have you seen the description of the pear meringue? I can't remember. Okay. If you have, you don't remember. So number one, when you're, I think, oh yeah, if I had a meringue, I could get the description, but I don't. So I'll, so we've got mushroom meringue. What in the wolf divided's most splintered name hath here been wrought? One winter aspect. Pudding. The description for the meringue basically says something to the effect of, or if you're feeling perverse, add it with mushroom or something savory. So, I was indeed feeling perverse. I don't think this is going to fit. So, let's put this up here. Along with Ava's locks. Nope, that won't fit. Well, Ava's locks won't be eaten, so I think we can keep these others. It was pretty charming. By my standards of charming. Okay, so let's start by pickling some mackerel, just to double check here. This would be for Zeta. This does have edge aspect. So first of all, we'll take... It looks like we've got a surplus of mackerel. So we'll add that. And we're not going to poach it, even though it gives us some forage. We are going to pickle it. Make pickled mackerel, a dish with edge, heart, moon, and scale. And then the second flush, Sam will take care of the drinks. We won't worry about the drinks quite yet. Leek soup. So that I'm going to need to open... Okay, so our last option here is the roast pheasant for starters. Because we got more than one pheasant, so we're fine there. Roast a pheasant, a dish with forage, heart, rose, scale, and sky. But now that I think of it, like a mushroom with whipped cream on top of a steak, that would be... There you go, making things pretty sensible. Okay. Two of the ingredients isn't bad, but we're definitely going to want to... we're going to want more. I don't need as many eggs as before, but I think I'm going to spend some quality time with the chickens once we've handled things with Corso. But like I said, we've got I've got basically 10 different interactions with the Cater and Hero order form, so I want to focus on that. Alright, so I might as well satisfy Corso's curiosity at this point. I don't need an appointment, do I? If there's an incident card active, you can discuss it, or leave the slot empty and offer a consultation. So, again, presumably I could have tried to force an incident, but in this case I'm just as happy to hand off the the Grail or Lantern interest to Corso. I can identify my visitors' interests and satisfy them with an appropriate book. Alternatively, if they know a language that I'd like to learn, I can offer payment. So we'll see what kind of Lantern books we have. I feel like a simple Locksmith's Dream ought to do the trick. Yep. My visitor is in search of revelations. The answers can be found in my collection. Okay, there's the scent. So I believe here we were going to level up. Where'd you go? Orchids and narcotics. So 1, 2. Right. No, I don't have the lessons. Okay, I have a 0.5 second window in which to get that squared away. It's going to be tight, but let's give it a shot. So I'm not going to try anything else until... Oops. So I want to watch this like a hawk. I'm going to have to go back and, you know, deal with the... Oops. All right. I am absolutely determined to write every order with Perenculate. So, for those of you wondering what that means, Perenculate, deadly. Use gloves to read text produced by this pigment. An ink of power, sometimes called an unsanctioned ink. Okay, onto the sugar. So I could do 3 sugar without checking these, but again, I don't want to leave anything to chance. Okay, so let's see if I can get this very narrow window taken care of. Nailed it! 1,000 threads, the fate supplications of the matriarch of the well, recorded in darkness by her weavers and her daughters. The well is long choked with rubble and ashes, the matriarch long gone. She predicted her own end even as these supplications were recorded, but their power remains. Speak these supplications before an altar whose roots have drawn from a sacred spring. Perhaps another root will rise towards daylight. So, let's just see what we get from that. Fear. I was not expecting that one. And 2 Trades Mahaira. So, before we unpause, I need to use this to level up Orchids and Narcotics. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Lesson Arab. At last, I am something of an authority in this. Now, I'm just going to double check that we're in the right place. So Orchids and Narcotics needs to get to 6. Pentiments and Precursors needs to get to 7. We've got both roughly where we need it. We're just working through the practicalities now. And I'll put a couple of notes beside these. So Orchids is ready to go. Pentiments is ready to go. So Scolacosophy is completely finished with this. So it seemed to me, in terms of the grand plan, it's really Sacrosolus Invicti and Furs and Feathers that are left. Furs and Feathers has the longest journey. Sacrosolus Invicti really just needs 2, so any 2 lantern or sky should be sufficient. Okay, so, and we'll get the replacements for Pentiments and Precursors in literally less than a second. Alright, help with letters, an afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. It is autumn when the leaves rustle. The silent landlady has served me apple pie with steamed cream in the window nook. The Morphe Codex, a priestess of the Sisterhood of the Knot, claims to have discerned the true meaning of the Thunderskin's birth. The writer credits the Red Grail, the Ring-Yew, and the Horned Axe, the powers the Sisterhood reveres, with agreeing a final treaty between the Hours of the House and the Hours they displaced. The Thunderskin loved the Yew, and the Grail destroyed him as restitution for the slaying of the Horned Axe's sisters and brothers. The Thunderskin entered the Mansis through the Peacock Door, a privilege never given to the Witch and Sister, but then their merit was much less. The writer admits that entry through the Peacock Door is unseemly, but insists that under the circumstances there was no other way. So, Beguiling Melody, a sweet enchantment of a song. I'll just reorder this, so... The Orchid Transfigurations, A Birth, a second volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Fludd. This is in the original Latin. Fludd, or pseudo-Fludd, suggests alignments between the alchemical tradition of Rubidoux and the older Grail traditions through the Pine Knight's quest for the Cinnabar Cup. Seek the birthing bed, the Pine Knight is told. The midwife at the birthing bed, to his amazement, is the Mountain Mother. In a fit of awe, he both gelds and flays himself. The vigilant storm bursts joyfully from the remains. The Sun Disfigured, a scroll of anthropodem parchment written in the golden ink called Uzalt. The author of the text calls herself the Elegabline. Sometimes she seems to be Sunset Celia, the Watchman's name. Sometimes she seems to be Lady Tryphon, the Grail-Long. It is unclear whether these are separate entities or the same person, and may be unclear even to the writer. The flaws in the Sun's plan are elucidated. The Sun's plan itself is never entirely clear, but it is a project of some kind to enter, possess, or surrender to the glory, the pure light above the Mansis. This book suggests ways in which that plan might fail. And Three Flowers Hath the Tree. Ernestine Peterhans records her observations of the growths of trees and flowers around the isle, and the omens and portents she attempts to draw from them, particularly the yew tree in Earl Brian's meadow, whose flowerings are sometimes eccentric. Ernestine observes that in the years when the tree flowers black, troubling secrets arise. When it flowers red, war and fires follow, and that no DeWolf heir has ever been born in a year when it flowers white. Ernestine attempts to use the tree's growths to advantage in her business affairs, but it fails. She is evidently very concerned when Henrik de Wolf's grandson Giles runs off with the pale trollop Hafren in the years when the tree flowers white. She begins to fear that she has entirely misinterpreted all the relevant omens. She is deeply concerned for the continuation of the de Wolf line and prays for Giles' return. So 1, 2, 3... 4, 5, 6, 7. We're actually 8, so more than enough for our Pentiments and Precursors. So really, this was the main thing that I wanted to get done for today. The Pentiments and Precursors was the last of these skills that I wanted to handle. It's a really the kind of character name you want to see on your bio. I feel like Trollop is very specifically for miladies, so I am pale. I don't think I can. I think that's stolen valor if I try to apply that to myself. All right. So when I take a look at what I'm trying to accomplish with the other... So Furs and Feathers has got to go to 9. So I need 6 more... I need 6 more lessons for that. Oh man, actually the Salon's going to get pretty interesting because there's really only 3 elements of the soul... sorry, 3 lessons I'm really interested in. Sky, Lantern, and Scale. Okay, so let's say I'm most interested in 2 Lantern. We'll start with that. So the best candidate for 2 Lantern would be... Each flame has fuel. That may overdo it, but this is the lowest level book that I have that will potentially get me the Lantern that I need. It also gets me Sky, but we know this one gives me Lantern, so I'm happy with that. Now, this is appealing because of the scale. Alternatively, I can try and go from the very left because I need a whole bunch of Sky and Scale. I feel like Wolf Stories would do the trick here. Okay, so actually, let's give this a shot with Nyx Abelix. I also need to find a better home for the potential books, so... let's say... I have too much stuff. Okay, I'm going to put you over here. Actually, it might be interesting to try and read The Focus of Amber instead of Each Flame as Fuel. I mean, they're both Omar the Blaze, but... Okay, so let's get to work. Start with Nyx Abelix. Now this I may need some help with. So if I take the... It's a Fusine text, so that's not going to give me any moon. So I could throw the moon that I have it at with Edict's Marshal, but I'm still coming up short on this one. I need 16. So the obvious answer here would be to read a Newman... Let me think. I could also just throw the Wormwood Dream. You know what? I'm going to throw the Wormwood Dream at it, even though there may be a slight inefficiency with it. I think I probably don't need to make this more complicated than it needs to be. So, Edict's Marshal, Nyx Abelix, throw the Wormwood Dream at it. And what are you doing? Moon, a culmination. I can master this mystery. Enough moon to match mystery moon. Okay, so moving on. I'm going to try the Focus of Amber. Just because it's slightly... Oh, actually, you know what? I might just go for the one that I can actually read. So if we take the Faust... If we try the Focus of Amber, so first thing we need to do is add Deep Mandiac. Deep Mandiac has Forge and Lantern, so neither of those are going to help me out. Now, the funny thing here is I actually don't think we're that strong on Sky. Anbury and Lapidary seems to be the best that I've got for that. So we have 10 without the intervention of a special memory like a Newman. Now, I could try an Ascendant Harmony. I could also try a Daidumos. This is a little bit of a bigger sacrifice. But you know what? I think it's still worth it. So, I can master this mystery. Enough Sky to match Mystery Sky. So while I'm doing that, let's try to generate a replacement Daidumos. So the Mazarine Fife will be helpful in this case. We're also coming up short on Elements of the Soul, so I may want to be a little thoughtful in terms of how I distribute them, but I think if we lose one of the memories, that's not... Or sorry, if we lose a memory that we get from reading a book, that's not going to be that big of a deal. But I think probably Applebright Euphonies is usually how I've made the Daidumos. Yeah, so there's that. I'm wondering if I can get away with an Ascendant Harmony in one of these other ones. Definitely not with the Sacralamea. Probably not with the White Watchman's Paradoxes either. That was unexpected. Let's just see what the Beguiling Melody does. Really? Okay. Oh, because it wants glass, right. So different... I can't assume this would be wanting me... most of the musical ones basically have music in the title. So I'm not too optimistic about making an Ascendant Harmony with something like, you know, Sights and Sensations. We're really looking for... I guess Bells and you know what? Bells and Braziers probably does this, but I'm going to need to find yet another Sky. So we're just going to wait on that. There's really no reason for me to push that any harder than I've already got. But I'm still going to insist on ordering my Caterin Hero stuff. Scratch tiny symbols on the flimsy form. And finally, one more sugar. Order sugar from Cater and Hero. Okay. So I might have to break one of those £1 notes, but that's fine. The point of the game, it turns out, is not to make a ton of money. Oh, actually, yeah, no, why did I think a Florin would work? Here we go. Complete the order. And we've got our pickled mackerel. Pickled mackerel. Pickling is a kind of afterlife. What comes after afterlife? Anyway, it just feels wrong to have the Ava's Locks looming in the background while we eat, so... Uh-oh, where did I put it, though? I really want to avoid putting those in the vaults if I can, but I'm running out of space. So, I think I can get away with forcing this on the bridge. Apparently not. And we have a roast pheasant, a dish with forge, heart, rose, scale, and sky. Do I have any whist left over? No, but that doesn't rule it out for an option. So if we go to the alchemy set, and I use quenchings and quelling. Yep, there we go. Muddle and mix a wintry preparation. The postmistress signs and seals the order and places it in the place that stamped orders are properly placed. Wait 3 days, she commands. It always does drive me a little insane that these things aren't properly ordered. Well, at least descending, I guess. Proper is in the eye of the beholder. Okay. So I think here we're just going to wait for the elements of the soul. I may start trying to renew some... Or sorry, we'll wait for the reading. Actually, no. There is one thing I can do, and that's to try and generate some more memories. So the skill is now level 6. Its power aspects have also increased. So that's organs and narcotics taken care of. Next up, pentiments and precursors. Now that's going to go to level 7, so we might as well put that in place. Oh, I should also read. So there is no greed without beauty. So pentiments and precursors wants Arab or scale. We'll settle for the Arab here. And we'll throw rain, a beguiling melody, hindsight. I guess we could do Sun's weakness because we're probably going to generate another Newman at that point. Satisfaction and gossip. So the fear and the savage hymn I guess we get for free. Just trying to think if either of these have a role. Yes, actually there's a specific set of... So Furs and Feathers make sense to use Sky and Scale, whereas Sacrosolus and Victi are Scale and Lantern. So in theory, I would want to keep Sun's weakness, hindsight, and the beguiling melody. Excuse me. So Sky is common to both of them, so I want to preserve as many of the Sky... Yeah, this is probably the better combination. Okay, and the Trides Mahara. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. So with that in mind, the brass ring would be Sacrosolus and Victi, which would... wait a minute. Oh, I might have messed up. No. I wanted it level 9. So what's the story with Furs and Feathers? Right, that's for Bosk. Okay. So the question's going to be, can I pull out 7 Sky or Lantern for Sacrosolus? So we've got 2. 3, 4, 5, 6. We definitely have more than enough. Okay, so let's start committing this stuff. So at Natan's desk, we'll use the Perugian Diaries. 5. Six. Yeah, the foresight will work here. Although I guess we've read that one recently, so Ava's treasury. Okay, so we have the 7. So next up, we'll still go for fear. No, sorry, let's focus on lantern first. Okay, so we have the lantern that we need. Now what I want to do is generate any scale that I can get my hands on. So, hindsight, fear, storm, and solace. I'm not going to have many options left. All right, I think that's as good as I'm going to get for my current setup. So I'll run that ahead. How enlightening. You've satisfied your visitor and earned a reward, but the more they learn, the harder they'll be to satisfy in future. Did I not have Corso in the... Wow. That doesn't feel right. Oh, fancy that. All right, I was definitely not expecting us to have more people to add to the book, but I'll take it. Now, this is the time I really should be considerate quality time with the birds. Question is, how much am I willing to give up for it? So we'll start with some basics. So, time with the beastie. Terence the chicken. Was this magnificent and indomitable beast named for the rector's indomitable and magnificent housekeeper? Best not to inquire too closely. So right now, all of the workstations are sort of occupied with memory generation, so we'll see where everything sits after after we have some spaces open to generate more memories. Right, better now. Now, given where we're sitting here, I'm going to take some time to renew some elements of the soul as well. Let's think about... I think probably just whist. Okay, the skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. Pentiments and precursors. The feats and fights of forgotten things. The Carapace Cross. The line of Antaios. The world of a low red sun. Though much is taken, much abides. So if I want, I could try and open one of these caches. I suppose the catch here... Well, you know what? That's not that long, actually. I could also try and generate a memory. which is the less exciting of the two options, but it is a very helpful one. And you know what? I'm not going to do any of those. I'm going to get a leak. Identify as leaks. These are leaks. Excellent. From that, I will be able to make a soup. Make leek soup, a dish with edge, moon, and nectar. Okay. So pheasant, leek soup, apple pie, pickled mackerel. Right, I also want to try and find a golden... Ooh, do I want to... Yeah, you know what? We're going to need to get this done sooner or later, so let's find ourselves a golden marrow. Identify as a marrow. This is a marrow. Promising. My next Salon, we will have Douglas, Aaron, Azita, Morgan, and Serena. Alright, a dark marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is a marrow with secrets. In Brandkrug, they take their marrows seriously. This is not a marrow conducive to harmony. Acridair marrow. I don't feel that this is a waste because these are all things we can use to feed the chickens. But I'm also putting a pretty clear halt to I'm putting a pretty clear halt to any additional lessons that I'll be getting over the course of the upgrades that I'll be getting. But that's fine. We'll have more than enough in terms of memories. All right. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is a marrow redolent of sorrow, the pale marrow. There's the golden marrow. In Brandkrug, they take their marrow seriously. This is accounted a beauty among its kind. Bake a golden stuffed marrow, a dish with heart, lantern, and nectar. Alright, that was definitely worth it. The Perugian Diaries. In 1907, at the age of 18, Christopher Allopoli left Strathcoyne's household to study theology at the University of Perugia in Italy, enrolling under the name Christopher Strathcoyne. For 4 years, since his adoption from a Bristol orphanage, Allopoli served as Strathcoyne's pupil and protege, but his relationship with this austere and secretive man was always complicated. His journal confides, "I still think Fraser's intentions are good. Certainly he agrees." Sorry, I always keep getting this wrong as well. So, Fraser? I think it's supposed to be like laser. So, Fraser's intentions are good. Certainly he agrees. I never understood the final goal of his investigations, and he was never prepared to enlighten me. And good intentions or not, I can no longer bear this dream of eyes. We have agreed to part almost amicably. Allopoli left Perugia in 1909 without completing his degree. He had long lost interest in his studies, and the latter half of his journal is concerned with his studies of Umbrian folk songs and notes towards his own compositions, which are of widely varying quality. One of the better ones, In the Marshes of Night, suggests he visited the site of Old Lake Fucinus near Ortuccio. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is still an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in the wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover that they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget that proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. Prophecies of Glory, religious and patriotic fables collected or composed by William Gore. This is much more sober than in tone than Gore's previous Wainscot histories. Evidently, he became religious in his later years. Each fable describes the coming of the second dawn, when the hours of the sun will be united, but in Eternity Denied, the Vampire Light and the Feast of Rays, Gore depicts a tainted dawn, which can only be purified by a second division of the sun. He insists repeatedly on the dangers and temptations of a false dawn. Glimmerings, an anonymous prison diary written by a dreamer convicted of Oneiric irresponsibility and confined to the Cucurbit. The prisoner is plainly terrified and bewildered by their situation, and has been unable to wrangle a coherent explanation out of anyone, but the dreams keep coming, and they keep writing them down. Snow, broken mirrors, half-heard sky music, flowers of white, red, and black, a blood-streaked winter dawn, the most notorious signifiers of Oneiric risk, fantastically vivid and detailed. No wonder they were locked up. Their final recorded dream is of a worm jewel beneath Brandkrug Isle, which they open with a key carved from their finger bone. Ava's Treasury, Ava de Wolf, Last of the Brandkrugs, discusses the occult and aesthetic properties of jewels and other precious minerals. Black nephrite and scolecite for nowhere, orichalc and amber for Ys, amethyst and for the night key of the spider door. Ava points out, bitterly, that there is no shortage of uplifting parables and proverbs about the saving graces of a flaw in a jewel, but that no one, not jeweler, not priest, not hour, has ever found a way to repair such a flaw. And Seven Shards, the Lionsmith, one of the two great hours of struggle, broke his sword into 7 shards. Natalia Brilot, 5th librarian of Hush House, describes the nature of each of those shards, allegorically and otherwise. The 3rd shard has been identified with the Cry of Pain. The Lionsmith is a stoic hour, but we must assume that in the sundering moment, even he might have been unable to restrain his distress. Now the sound of tin under pressure we call the tin cry, a reason perhaps for further identification of the 3rd shard as the Shard Royal. The 7th shard we call informally the Invincible Audacity, which is struck from the winning move as the winning move is struck from a memory, with the application of sufficient edge. Okay, so it wouldn't hurt for me to take a minute here and just see what I'm going to use for Sacra Solis Invicti and what I'm going to use for Furs and Feathers. So let's say definitely Revelation, Bittersweet Certainty, and Foresight are Sacra only. So that's 3, 4, 5, 6... 7. So the Hindsight, and then we'll need 2 more for the Furs and Feathers, which clearly we have enough for, right? Like, once we set aside these, we have 5 elements of the soul left over. So not enough for a 2nd level, but definitely enough to keep us going. At this point, I think I'm willing to sit and wait for the books to finish. Oh, actually, I'm going to keep talking with the chickens. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Tuppence, the other chicken. Tuppence's most notable quality, all observers will agree, is that she is not Terence. Offer this beast my company? Who knows? Perhaps it will offer something in return. So because I don't have much use for these extra marrows, we already have the dark and the pale marrow. Well, sorry, we should have dark and pale marrows. Let me just double check that here. So dark, acrid. Actually, we're short on the pale marrows, so maybe we'll hang on to that. But yeah, the dark and the acrid I can feed to the chickens. They're not fussy. With keeper level winter, Solomon's preparations are a precursor to the great ink Nillikant. Nope. Sorry, I just got a notification on Apple Music I'm slightly curious about. Huh. Interesting. Alright, so this would usually be the time that we want to hurry up, but we're going to have more memories that I know what to do with, so I'm not in a particular rush. Alright, better now. Probably want to turn that into money, so help with letters. I could offer help with correspondence and arithmetic. There's no school in Brandkrug, and not everyone here knows their letters. Idumos, the dream of a star is not apparent to the human eye, but its presence, once felt, could not be mistaken for anything else. Now, I think if I'm lucky, I might be able to sneak out another Ascendant Harmony out of this. So let's go... I would need to use the Quivering Double Bass. So we combine that with the Applebright Euphonies. Right, but then I wouldn't be able to add that. Ooh. Maybe an altar? Yeah, that won't take a tool. I think I got a little too clever for myself here. Alright, let's read the existing books before I go too much further. So, Nix Abolix, a grim treatise on those feasts that occur, those feasts that are not to be witnessed. The Alukites, who feasted on their children and became monsters. The Dragonkinds among the Carapace Cross, who feasted on our flesh and became monsters. The Calvites, who drank of Echidna's bounty and became monsters. Baronet, the Legion, so young, so hungry, all her children cannot slake her thirst. When Moth rose, another held the flaying key, but at the Grail's bidding did Marinette consume that she. So there's a fear for us to play with. Alright, 3 wolf stories. That's going to throw me for a bit of a loop. A little bit like Ragged Crossroads, but we'll work with what we've got. And the focus of Amber, Omar the Blaze, spent 7 years managing a lighthouse in Tyre in atonement for the extinguishing of a sacred flame. By the end of his stint, he was so terrified of fire that he could not stand to share a room with a candle. This work was written in partial penance. Omar claims that the hour called Watchman is both a god who is flesh, an hour who is mortal, but also a god from light, an hour who descended from the glory, but adds finally that the Watchman's origin is triple, and that in essence he is Amber. The Watchman, according to Omar, was once another hour entirely, who ascended into the glory to escape efforts by other hours to send him to nowhere. It may be that Omar's sense of persecution creeps into the narrative at this point. Certainly, it grows less coherent, and the last part is devoted to attempts to prove that eyes, eggs, and the sun are all in some sense conjunct. So first thing I want to do is make sure that I put Nix Abolix with the Fear. I'm running out of space for the Fear, so we're probably going to have to do some reshelving before too long. This one gave us a revelation. And 3 Glacierian Lightsmithing. Okay. So first things first, let's grab Sacrosolus Invicti. Last, I approach mastery. Improve the skill to level 8. So obviously tomorrow our big goal is going to be that final level for... Oh, actually, if I think about it, this isn't so bad. So Sakra gets its 2. We have 1 left over. So we'll have a total of 4 to go to furs and feathers, which means we just need to get another 2. So yeah, we may have 1 over, but in general, we're still in good shape. So I shouldn't worry too much. I do need another scale, however. So let's think about how we're going to get that. So we've got fear, we've got hindsight. I suppose it makes as much... Oh, hang on. There's a couple things we can do. So first of all, we'll set you aside. I'm going to take my health. I'm going to take the Applebright Euphonies. So now we can combine that with the Mazarine Fife. So now we can create the Ascendant Harmony. And on top of that, I believe if we go to the Nocturnary... No, I'm sure. Oh, no, if I put it in Substance... Edicts Martial. Oh, but I need to give up a memory. We could give up the Intuition. There we go. We get my Wormwood Dream back, too. So off of that, we just need 1 more memory to get what I need to level up furs and feathers. So from there, we will... It's literally any... This should not be hard. It's literally any book that I want that isn't fear or hindsight. Let's try regret. And then what I'll do here is I'll use the core to feed one of the chickens. Okay, make a leek soup, a dish with edge, moon, and nectar. So this actually wound up being a really good day for us, because I was able to restore the elements, or the memories that I used up. I guess the only thing I didn't do was get another Newman, but that's not that hard for me to get. Okay, the golden stuffed marrow. So I didn't read these others. So leek soup, milder taste than onion soup, but no less warming. Excuse me, roast pheasant, best when roasted upside down to start, but turned right way up before the end. And stuffed golden marrow, this marrow was accounted a beauty among its kind. Now it's a dish for those who understand fidelity. So once we get our dough, we'll be able to make an apple pie. The skill is now level 8. Its power aspects have also increased. And now it suggests a meal would be welcome. Okay, so one of you... has been waiting longer. Acrid marrow for you. I mean, it is resentful Terrence, so they'll get the acrid marrow. Resentful Terrence, cluck, cluck! Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or wild one cooperative. Night has fallen. Dawn will come soon. We've got 30 seconds. Oh. No, sorry, that's the Ascendant Harmony. Yeah, we've got enough time for the furs and feathers. The only thing, it did occur to me, I'm not going to have something for the... I'm not going to have something to take overnight. Lady Ava's Repose, a meditation on the drowning of Lady Ava de Wolf and her two grandchildren, written in the years when the estate was abandoned by Father Theo, once the de Wolf family chaplain, one of the few to remain on the Isle in those desolate years. There are so many stories of her heritage, so many rumors of her persistence. We might easily choose to believe that the grand twins escaped, even that they live yet beyond the sea. Father Theo has come to believe that Ava sought an escape from a family curse, the pale heritage of Haffren, her forebearer, or the curse placed upon the line by the cunning man Red William in the time of Hendrik de Wolf. He had begun by believing neither curse was real, but as the book concludes, he decides that he is determined to believe in them rather than accept the three deaths as a futile tragedy. One does not so easily escape the long necessity of faith, he concludes. So there's the regret. So the important step here is to make sure that for Furs and Feathers, the scale stuff is always being applied to it, whereas Glazerian Lightsmithing only gets applied to Sacrosalis Invicti. So here we take Furs and Feathers. Toss one at you. One. No! I wasn't thinking. I thought hindsight winter, but we've got what we need because I can take the earth sign. So, another fruit plucked from knowledge's tree. Improve the skill to level 4. An afternoon spent profitably reading newspapers to the curious, writing affectionate letters for the lonely, steering farmers to the requirements of the Ministry of Agriculture. So I feel a little silly about the sort of the finale there, but we'll make it work. And it looks actually we made it to more or less a full stream time. It is 1 in the morning, and I have just a couple of memories coming up. So we'll generate the required memories, and then I think we will call it an evening there. I have a pretty clear idea in terms of what we do to get to the next salon. I can actually host it right now if I want. The thing is, I actually have enough to do to get me to a better spot. I just don't necessarily feel the need to follow through on any of this. I think probably the most sensible thing for me to do in between would be... Did I forget to put... I should have 2 eggs. Yeah. So the most sensible thing for me to do right now would be to level up. So what I want to do here is basically level up Furs and Feathers to 9. That's the last one that I need to basically be able to get everything that I need in the Tree of Wisdoms. After that, clearly I have more books, and I actually also have more elements of the skills to apply to the Tree of Wisdoms. So I think what I'm probably going to do is I want to really, really focus on leveling up Furs and Feathers to that level 9. Once I've done so, I want to take all of the spare lessons that I get from the salon, anything that I have left over, and I want to apply them towards the skills that... Oh, hang on, have I not... Wow. Yeah, I can even level up a language, actually. Cool. But what I'm basically going to do is I will look at whatever skills I have left over. I'll see what I can apply to the Tree of Wisdoms in sort of a systematic way, and then from there I'll guide my I'll sort of guide my lesson assignment off of that. The reason why I want to do it in that order is I may find that there are some skills that I can't assign to certain branches, either because they're already occupied or I have so many skills that I have 2 slots and 4 skills. So what I want to do there is make sure that I sort of triage the skills to try and make sure as many of them as possible are committed to the Tree of Wisdoms. But all of that, that's down the road consideration. All right, the skill is now level 4. Its power aspects have also increased. Craft an Ascendant Harmony with Keeper level Sky. An Ascendant Harmony might conjure a Didymos, bright and ringing music which evokes the blue sweep of the lower heavens. And craft a Wormwood Dream. Let us hope it is equally possible to forget this again. The only thing we're short of is the Earth Sign. That I'm going to have to wait for. But this is a good chance for me to write my plans on the to-do list. So 1, Earth Sign. All right, so I've written on my to-do list 1, get the Earth Sign. 2, level Sacrosalis Invicti. 3, level Furs and Feathers. 4, Salon. 5, assign surplus skills. 6, caches. And I think that will be, I think that'll take me through most of autumn. But overall, we're doing pretty well. So aside from a small blunder in terms of the memories, and again, this is the sort of thing I'm going to forget like immediately. This is not a big deal at all. I'm actually also feeling pretty good that we used up all the elements of the soul. So what Sacrosalis Invicti is at the top level, we really honestly only have one more skill stopping us from committing a bunch of stuff to the Tree of Wisdoms. I would kind of like to just do it all in one big batch because it's just a nice chance for us to catch up on a bunch of lore and such. So I am going to really want to push the, work on, sorry, I'm going to update my notes here too. So Sacra is at 8, so we need 1. Furs and Feathers is now at 4, meaning we need 5. So one Lightsmith goes to Sacra. Lightsmith goes to Furs. 2 Wolf goes to Furs. So that's at 4, 5, 6, 7. Is that 7? So 2 more for Furs and Feathers would come from, well, presumably each flame is fuel, but I think if it's level 14, that means we get 3. I'm just trying to think if I have another example of a book that I've done. I'm trying to think if I've done a book for that at 14 that I remember offhand. It could be like these ones would be great. It's just they're lower level. Sorry, it's not. These ones would be great because they're lower level, but they don't have the memories that I need. Enchiridion Triangularis. Well, see, Enchiridion Triangularis is 14. On the other hand, this is such a hard one. Like, I am a little curious about the contents of this book. Anyways, doesn't matter. Each flame is fuel. Is as likely to give us what we need as the next best alternative. So we'll stick with that. So each flame. So yeah, the way I'm thinking that this is going to work out. So tomorrow we will line up We'll line up the memories to get furs and feathers up. The really big problem here is I don't think we're going to be able to do a sprint for it that gets us everything we want right away. So to go from furs and feathers, we need 4, 5, so 9. Yeah, so 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 4 and 5. Yeah, there's actually a fun little theorem from Gauss to do this calculation. But anyways, 4 and 5 is 9. 9 and 6 is 15. 15 and 7 is 22. 15, okay, so 30 at 8. So yeah, I would need 30 elements of the soul to do it in one go. We've got 8, well, 13, 18, 24, 27, 31. Oh, okay. I have a lot more than I thought. 37 plus the 8, so 45. So actually, yeah, so I believe we have 10 left over once I account for the levels that I need. And we've got 5 health and 3 FOSS. So even though I'll give up one of the FOSS to read each flame as fuel, I actually think we pull this off. The only thing that I'll be short on actually is a memory, but we've also shown that we can get the memory back by the end of the day. So there's really no excuse for me not to read each flame his fuel at the start. That is a little surprising and also kind of fun. But again, I'll worry about that later. But yeah, so the first... oh, hang on. No, even if we do Sacrosanct... Jesus, that's weird. Okay. So we're going to do Sacrosalis Invicti. We're going to level that up. And I believe we still have enough elements of the soul left over to be able to level up our furs and feathers. Although we might need to get clever in terms of what different memories I use. Still, rather encouraging. But all of that is going to happen in a future episode. So thank you everybody for watching. Again, I'm a little unsure about the Wednesday plans. I do feel bad that I said that there was basically nothing until New Year's, and I sort of neglected the third Wednesday, which I've just kind of gotten used to having off. So the deal is this. I'm probably out on Wednesday, and even if there isn't a meetup or like a supplement or something like that, it might be just kind of nice to have a night out. Because even like taking the Wednesday off to do a meetup, like the meetup is something you prepare for. It's fun. Like I will not say I feel bad going to the meetup and woe is me, but it's also not like I'm lying back watching Apple TV Plus or something. So very unlikely I'm going to be streaming on Wednesday. I will be back on Friday though, where I implement all of these plans and I've written them down so I don't forget. Next week, again, I'm not expecting any major interruptions. I believe Christmas falls on the Wednesday. So the only thing I'll say for Christmas is that I do a stream for it. However, it is much more flexible in terms of when. So I may stream a bit earlier. I don't know if I'd stream later, but it is one of these cases where I will try and announce on Twitter or something like that when I'm... when I'm doing the stream. All things being equal, I will try to give as much advance notice as I can. But there's the usual obligations, right? Talking to family, doing, just doing all the basics, all the ancillary stuff. Trying to make sure that I'm taking care of my own life as well as doing the streams. But I definitely intend to stream, and I want to try and stream a little bit earlier because I'm going to be at home, right? It's not like I have the sort of work obligation. Now, the big question is, when it's 1 o'clock in the morning, who do I host? There's a few people online, but I don't think there's anybody for Book of Hours. And unfortunately, we don't have anybody doing Cultist Simulator, so I'm going to leave you in the capable hands of a fellow Canadian, Kilgore Trout. He does do classic games and has a big movie collection that he sometimes shows off. He's based in Newfoundland and Labrador, I believe, but it's actually also kind of nice. It's nice to host him because he tends to go quite late. I think he finishes like 4 o'clock my time, which is basically dawn where he is. But in any case, he's a fun streamer to hang out with, and actually he is somebody who plays classic games on original hardware. So he has sort of, I don't know if it's an AMD Athlon or like an old Intel Celeron or Pentium or whatever it is. Anyways, he's got an old rig set up to play a number of the classic games that he plays on basically hardware systems that would have been roughly what you could play them on at the time. Obviously, it depends on what game. You wouldn't have an Athlon for something from the early 90s, presumably. But it's kind of neat to see the streamer do that. In any case, he's also, like I said, he's a late streaming Canadian, so I feel very safe. He is the revived Snow of late night streamers, if you will, who I noticed gave us a well played. Thank you very much for hanging out. Hopefully it was pleasant to spend some time in Hush House. Maybe one day I'll get a chance to see you stream that game, Snow. But I've got 10 seconds. Have a wonderful evening, everybody. Treat Kilgore well, and I will see you all Friday at the latest. Take care.